Hello everyone, I am Peak. Last time, the three main characters officially met and also encountered pursuers, making the situation quite urgent. What new challenges will they face this time? Now, let's begin the story of Chapter 5. Chapter 5, Trial of the Forest.
Jasin, Justia, and Dante hid in the dark room of the workshop, holding their breath as they waited for the pursuers to leave. The air was thick with tension. Jasin closed his eyes, feeling the magic flowing within him, his fingers twitching slightly as if manipulating invisible strings. "We can't hide here forever," Justia whispered, her voice trembling almost imperceptibly. "Those people won't give up easily." Jasin opened his eyes, noticing Justia's tense shoulders. He remembered the dark past she had mentioned, and a wave of complex emotions washed over him. "Don't worry," he said softly, "we'll find a way out." Dante's deep eyes glimmered in the dim candlelight. "We do need a plan," he said, turning to Jasin. "What are you thinking, Jasin? You seem to be contemplating something." Jasin was momentarily stunned by Dante's dazzling presence, his heart filling with complex emotions. On one hand, he felt shy about developing feelings for this prince-like handsome man. On the other hand, he reminded himself that Dante couldn't possibly be interested in him, another man. Moreover, Jasin thought that according to Otome Game logic, Dante should like Justia. These thoughts made Jasin smile bitterly as he forced himself to focus on the current crisis. "We could try the mist forest," he suggested. "It's close but dangerous. The pursuers might not follow us in there easily." "The mist forest?" Justia raised an eyebrow. Dante nodded thoughtfully, lowering his voice. "According to ancient legends, this forest was once a sacred site of an ancient magical civilization. The power hidden there might be enough to change the magical balance of the entire world. Because of this, rulers throughout history have strictly sealed off this area, even using magic to conceal its true location. You seem to know quite a bit about it. You're not ordinary, you?" His gaze lingered on Jasin for a moment, as if in contemplation. Jasin worried that his secret might have been discovered, but this prince-like handsome man was truly dazzling. "I just heard about it somewhere," he said, feeling a bit uncomfortable, "but we need to be prepared. We don't know what's hidden in that forest." The three quickly gathered necessary items and quietly left the workshop under the cover of night. The city streets were empty, with only moonlight illuminating the cobblestones, guiding their way. They crept through dark alleys, each step filled with unease, the faint sound of pursuers' footsteps in the distance. When they reached the edge of the city, the mist forest appeared faintly before them. Jasin, Justia, and Dante stood at the entrance, exchanging determined looks. The mist was so thick it seemed like an invisible barrier, separating this mysterious and dangerous forest from the outside world. Jasin took a deep breath, feeling the magic within him fluctuate. "The magic here is strange," he said softly. "I feel like the magic inside me is being amplified and strengthened." Justia looked around vigilantly, her hand unconsciously moving towards the poison pouch at her waist. "I feel it too," she said. "This forest seems to be calling out to something." There was a hint of unease in her voice, making Jasin realize that even someone as cold as her had a vulnerable side. Dante seemed not to notice the unease of the other two, focusing intently on observing the forest entrance. Jasin couldn't help but wonder how Dante would react if he knew they were reincarnated beings. The thought made him feel nervous. The three then carefully entered the forest. The mist immediately engulfed them, blurring their vision. Jasin felt a wave of dizziness and summoned a small puppet to scout ahead. "Amazing," Dante exclaimed. "Your puppet magic seems to have some kind of resonance with this forest." Jasin nodded, trying not to be distracted by Dante's charm. "I feel like I can control them more precisely," he said, "but I also feel a strange fatigue." As they went deeper, the forest became increasingly eerie. Bizarre plants twisted around their feet, emitting strange glows. Occasional weird cries sent chills down their spines. Dante occasionally stopped to collect rare herbs, each bending motion graceful and attractive. Jasin reminded himself he wasn't looking at Dante's behind. Justia vigilantly observed their surroundings, occasionally casting concerned glances at Jasin. Suddenly, Jasin's puppet stopped. "Wait," he said, "my puppet has found something." The mist ahead parted slightly, revealing the outline of an ancient building. Huge stone pillars were half hidden in the mist, vines wrapped around them, seeming to tell tales of the passage of time. "What is this place?" Justia asked in surprise, her voice tinged with an unconscious awe. Dante looked at the ruins. "I've never heard of such a building in this forest." His eyes sparkled with excitement. "It looks very ancient, possibly the reason this forest was sealed." Jasin felt a strange sense of familiarity, as if the ruins were calling out to him. "I can send a puppet in to explore," he said. "Maybe we can find some useful information." Just then, a loud noise broke the silence of the forest. Jason's eyes snapped open. Not good, the puppet might have triggered some mechanism. Almost at the same moment, a commotion spread through the forest. Countless glowing eyes lit up in the darkness, accompanied by low growls. "Damn, magic beasts!" Justia quickly drew her dagger. "They've been disturbed." Her body leaned slightly towards Jasin, as if instinctively wanting to protect him. Dante skillfully opened his potion pack, his movements precise, each vial held steadily in his hand. "Looks like we're in for a tough fight." His voice remained calm, as if unconcerned about the impending danger. "Jasin, can your puppets help in this environment?" Jasin took a deep breath, feeling the surging magic within him. "I can try," he said, while summoning more small puppets to distract the magic beasts. "But we need to find a way to retreat. These magic beasts seem to have been affected by the power of the ruins. They've become very fierce." Justia nimbly dodged an attack from a magic beast while precisely shooting a poisoned dart into the eye of another. "Agreed, but where do we retreat to?" Her gaze unconsciously glanced at Jasin, seeking ideas. Dante threw several smoking bottles, which shattered and released strong acid mist, forcing back several magic beasts. Even in such a dire situation, his movements were still breathtakingly beautiful. "How about those ruins?" he suggested. "There might be something inside we can use. Besides, Jasin seems to have some connection to that place." Jasin thought quickly. Although they hadn't had a chance to explore the interior of the ruins, this seemed to be the best option at the moment. "Good idea," he shouted. "I can send a small puppet in to scout first." Under Jason's command, a small puppet quickly flew towards the ruins. Meanwhile, the three fought and retreated towards the direction of the ruins. "Jasin, has your puppet found anything?" Dante asked while releasing a magic barrier to block the attacks of the magic beasts. Jasin closed his eyes, concentrating on sensing what his puppet saw and heard. Suddenly, his expression changed to one of surprise. "Wait," he shouted, "my puppet has found a strange device in a hidden room." "What kind of device?" Dante asked eagerly, his eyes flashing with excitement. Jasin frowned in thought, trying to describe the scene he saw through the puppet. "It looks like a huge disc, covered in complex runes. There's a crystal ball in the center, emitting a faint blue light. There are several lever-like things around it." He paused. "Those runes. I can't understand them, but a few are similar to the symbols for guard and barrier that I've seen in an ancient book." Justia asked warily, "Are we really going to touch it?" There was a hint of unease in her voice. Dante nodded thoughtfully. "If it's a defensive device, activating it could indeed help us escape. But the risk is also high." "I know it's risky," Jasin said firmly, "but those runes give me a strange sense of familiarity, like they're calling out to me. I think I can control it." He looked at Justia and Dante. "Besides, look at those magic beasts, they seem to be deliberately avoiding a certain area around the ruins. I suspect this device might have once created some kind of barrier, but it's now low on energy. If we can reactivate it, maybe we can re-establish the barrier and keep the magic beasts out." Dante finished his sentence, his eyes flashing with understanding and appreciation. Jasin nodded. "Exactly. This is our last chance. Do you trust me?" After a moment of silence, Dante and Justia both nodded. There was a flash of concern in Justia's eyes, but more trust in Jasin. Jasin closed his eyes, fully concentrating on controlling the puppet in the ruins. In his consciousness, the puppet carefully approached the mysterious device. It extended its small hand, following Jason's instructions, and began adjusting those levers while infusing a thread of magic into the central crystal ball. Suddenly, the light from the crystal ball became unusually bright. A dazzling blue light burst from the ruins, piercing through the dense fog and forming a huge translucent barrier that enveloped the entire ruins. The magic beasts let out painful howls, repelled by the barrier and retreating. It worked! Jasin opened his eyes and shouted joyfully. Quick! Get inside now! The three seized the opportunity and quickly rushed towards the ruins. Behind them, the barrier around the ruins flickered steadily, keeping the danger at bay. When they finally entered the ruins and managed to close the heavy stone door, everyone was out of breath. We're safe for now, Justia panted. She looked at Jasin, a flash of admiration and tenderness in her eyes. Your judgment was very accurate. I'm glad you're with us. Jasin felt a warmth surge in his heart, but he quickly reminded himself to stay calm. Thank you, he said softly, but this was the result of all three of us working together. Dante looked thoughtfully at their surroundings, his gaze sweeping over the ancient murals and mysterious runes on the walls. Jasin, what exactly did you activate? He asked, his voice filled with intense curiosity. That power. It feels extraordinary. It seems to have some kind of resonance with these ruins. Jasin shook his head. I'm not sure either. Those runes give me a feeling of both familiarity and strangeness. Jasin looked at Justia and said quietly, I've been wondering if there's a special reason why we came to this world. Justia said, although we both come from another world, you seem to understand this world better than I do. Jasin took a deep breath, deciding to share more information. Justia, that Otome game I told you about before, the reality is much more different than I imagined. Justia nodded. You mentioned before that I was optimistic and cheerful in that game, right? There was a hint of bitterness in her voice, not like who I am now. Jasin said gently, life shapes us, Justia. Your experiences have made you who you are now, and that doesn't mean you're any less than the character in the game. In fact, I think you're more real and stronger than the game character. A flash of emotion passed through Justia's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. Thank you, Jasin. Jasin suddenly realized that Dante had been listening nearby. He looked at Dante uneasily. Dante, did you hear all that? Dante pondered for a moment, then smiled. To be honest, I've always felt there was something different about you too. But knowing the truth now, I admire you even more. Jasin felt relieved, but another wave of hesitation washed over him. He looked at Justia, then at Dante, and finally made up his mind to say, there's actually one more thing. In the game, Justia is the main female character, and you, Dante, are one of her potential love interests. Dante raised an eyebrow, showing a hint of surprise. His gaze swept between Justia and Jasin, and he finally chuckled. That's an interesting setting. But his expression turned serious. We all know reality is much more complex than games. Justia looked a bit uncomfortable, but she quickly regained her usual calmness. That's right, she said, we are real people, with our own will and feelings. Jasin felt a sense of relief, but at the same time, a complex emotion arose in his heart. He realized that in reality, feelings were unpredictable and uncontrollable. Dante smiled and said, in any case, I'm glad to have met you too. Perhaps it's because you come from another world that you were able to activate the power of these ruins. I'm increasingly convinced that your arrival is not a coincidence. Can you tell me more about your story later? It's nothing special, Justia said, but there was a hint of warmth in her tone, her gaze lingering on Jasin. We have more important things to do now. As night fell, the three found a relatively safe place in the ruins to rest. Starlight filtered through the broken ceiling, adding a touch of mystery to this extraordinary night. Jasin looked at his companions, a wave of complex emotions washing over him. Dante still radiated a dazzling handsome aura, while Justia's gaze seemed to hide some unspoken words. He thought of the Otome game he had played in his original world and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Reality was far more complex than games, and everyone had their own story and thoughts. Tomorrow we'll start exploring these ruins, Jasin said softly. Maybe we can find the real reason why we came to this world. Justia and Dante nodded in agreement. The three exchanged vigilant yet expectant looks, all understanding that this adventure might have changed everything, and more challenges were still waiting for them. With anticipation for the unknown and a hint of unease, Jasin slowly closed his eyes. Before drifting off to sleep, a thought flashed through his mind: no matter what the future held, at least he knew that the three of them would be by each other's side for now. This thought gave him great comfort, allowing him to fall asleep with a smile.
Thank you all for watching the story of Chapter 5. Did you enjoy it? In the next episode, we will be exploring ruins and might uncover the world's greatest secret. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, remember to subscribe, and click the bell to receive the latest updates. See you all next time.